Hi, and welcome to the second installment of the SAAC interview series. I'm Leah Fogelsanger, a rising senior on the women's field hockey team.
And I'm Kaylee Peeples, a rising senior on the women's lacrosse team.
And today we'll be interviewing Bucknell Athletic Director Jermaine Truax.
Good to be with you both. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So AD Jermaine Truax came here to Bucknell in 2018. He played football at Edinburgh University and earned a degree in health and physical education, and also has a master's degree in sports management from Slippery Rock.
That's correct.
All right, so start with the questions. So what was your student athlete experience like as you went through college?
So I actually had a really good student athlete experience. You mentioned I played football at Edinburgh. So I was a starter team captain. We were very successful. Our program was top 15 in the country or so, at least during my time there. And so playoffs and conference championships, 3 straight conference championships in a row. So from a competitive standpoint, really, really great experience. And then obviously being a team captain throughout my time there, and a starter at defensive back at corner specifically. Had a really good experience and really enjoyed some of my best memories of college or my student athlete experience. And so it's a little different for a couple of reasons. One, that's Division II, but the evolution of athletics over the last 15 to 20 years has been really impressive, particularly around student athlete welfare, student athlete experience, the holistic development of student athletes, a lot of the things that we like to do here. So that didn't exist as much as I was going through. So that evolution of it and seeing where we're at with it now, we're in a much, much better place. But that's more of a circumstance of time than it is anything. But overall, to me, nothing's better than being a student athlete.
That's great. Well, congrats on your, college experiences there. I mean, that's extremely impressive. And like continuing, so could you share some of your thoughts on your personal experiences and journey of becoming an athletic director responsible for a Division I NCAA program?
Sure. Started with being a student athlete, and I've always known that I wanted to be in college athletics, specifically an athletic director. As far as back as I can remember, so high school, and really had a good relationship with my athletic director there. And so I said, this is something that I really want to do. I didn't have enough context to know if it meant college or high school or what level of college, but I knew I wanted to do that. And so obviously being a student athlete really helps. It's not necessary or mandatory if you want to go into athletic administration, but it is helpful to be able to talk about experiences as a student athlete. And then I want to say intentional because it just kind of happened. If you think about my experience, I've really touched a lot of different places, from college sports to professional sports. So right after graduation, I went off to San Jose and the Arena Football League, which you two might be a little too young to remember, but at its height, I was in that league. So it was football, and I was working in player personnel and operations. And then I went from there to the Buffalo Bills and did a short stint with them over the summer, and then went back to grad school. And then right after grad school, I got my first Division I job at St. Bonaventure, and then I went to Bowling Green after there. But before I go on there, when I was at St. Bonaventure, I was also able to coach at one of my other stops. So I coached football as well as an assistant coach. And then from Bowling Green, went to Loyola Chicago to now here. And I've held various positions as I've climbed up the ladder. But the fact that I was able to work in professional sports, Division I athletics, also was a coach, was a former student athlete, all of those things shape kind of my approach to my leadership and kind of where I am now, but all really, really good experiences that helped me get to being the AD at Bucknell.
You mentioned your leadership. So could you kind of describe your own personal style of leadership and if it's changed, since you've come to Bucknell?
Yep, that's a good question. So I would say my leadership style is situational. It really depends on the situation, the people I'm dealing with, the experiences of those people, right? I don't interact and lead, say, the president like I would an assistant athletic director, right? And so there's just different dynamics. And so I really believe that good leaders modulate their style. The core of who I am is always the same, but my leadership does change based off of the situation, the circumstance, who I'm dealing with. And so to the extent I can be, I try to be collaborative. Right here at Bucknell, we have a great senior leadership team, great staff, and so I can rely on them and be collaborative, certainly. But if I had to pin it down and say what's my specific style outside of situational leadership, it'd be very collaborative to the extent that I possibly can be. But ultimately, the decisions rest with me, and I have to make them. But I do want good input from not just our staff, but coaches, from you all as student athletes, which is again why SAAC is so important, our Student Athlete Advisory Committee, because that's leadership. We have our Bali program, like our Leadership Institute, all falling under that student athlete enrichment and getting feedback, even if it isn't me directly, having people in place who can provide that feedback. And so very situational overall, but to the extent I can be, collaboration is important to me.
That's wonderful. Okay, I have like 2 more questions, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kaylee. So is there any advice that you can give to anyone interested in pursuing a career in athletic administration?
Yeah, I'll go back to you think about my path. One of the things that I was willing to do is go anywhere. I didn't really care about how much money I made. When I went out to San Jose in Arena Football League, that was more of a gamble than it was anything. And so because I wanted to do this so badly and I knew I wanted to do it, I put all my eggs in this basket. There's a saying out there that says, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, I put all my eggs in this basket. And so I was willing to do whatever necessary to be in this industry. A lot of people want to work in it, supply and demand, so simple economics. So you can anticipate working a lot of hours and not making a lot of money for a long time, right? And I was okay with all of that because this is what I wanted to do. So think about those pieces, but also to the extent anyone wants to get in, find ways to get as much experience as you can as early as you can. So if you're a student athlete, whatever, you think about being here at Bucknell, we have Division I athletics on our campus. So if you're truly interested in working in athletics, regardless of your major, find time to volunteer and get some experience, because ultimately when we're looking, I know I do it, but generally speaking, it happens when we're looking at a resume, and one resume is, let's just say, all academic, and another one is academic plus has some experience, even if it's volunteer work. Well, we know we're going to give that person who has experience just I don't want to say a better opportunity, but certainly if you have experience, you're going to get a stronger look than somebody who's never done it before. And so to the extent that people are willing to take risks, but more importantly, find a way to get experience, even if it's volunteering, take advantage of it in the locale of your either institution or close by somewhere else. I believe most, it doesn't matter the level, have college athletics, whether it's Division I, II, or III. Get that experience early and often, and that really starts building your resume. And it also helps people figure out what area, what unit of athletics do I want to work in, because there's so many different units. There's compliance, there's academics, there's student athlete enrichment, there's the business office, marketing. There's so many different things. And so to be able to develop those skills early is critical.
All right, last question from me. Are there any examples of challenges you had to overcome as a diverse candidate pursuing roles in athletic administration at all?
It's a good question, particularly given where we are right now in society. Although we've been here, this place for a long, long time, but it's now getting at least the proper attention in the moment that things need to be done. I've actually been pretty fortunate. I don't I don't think that I have been specifically. I've been fortunate in that I've had a pretty fast rise to both the athletic director role, but also a pretty fast rise within every organization that I've been in. And so the last couple of stops I've come in at higher level, but before that and all my other stops, I've risen pretty quickly. And so I think the average age of an athletic director is somewhere between 43 and 45. I was named at 35, right? So, you know, I'm nearly 10 years ahead. And as a Black person, I haven't, if I can't recall, I don't know if it has happened. You never know what's happening behind the scenes, but again, my experience has not led me to believe that anything specifically has happened to me. I do know just a lot of my peers in the industry have shared stories. Obviously, it's for them to share, not me, but it's real. It happens. I've been on a number of search committees that I've either led or been a part of, and women and people of color many of them have asked, am I a token candidate? Because I don't want to come if I'm going to be the only Black candidate or the only female. And so I've experienced it from that lens of just candidates feeling like, you know what, the only reason I might be here is because I'm a person of color, right? And that's not where you want to be either. But for me specifically, I believe I have been fortunate, and you know, hopefully though, with everything going around, we don't have to think in the mindset of being fortunate that it hasn't happened to you, right? It just shouldn't happen, just like it doesn't happen for middle-aged white people, right? Happens to women, but middle-aged white men, they don't think to themselves, wow, I've been fortunate that I wasn't discriminated against, generally speaking. And so, good question. Again, I've been fortunate, but I certainly know of a lot of horror stories out there for people of color and women.
So along those lines, I just want to ask you, how does Bucknell Athletics ensure a diverse and inclusive experience for all student athletes, especially at a predominantly white institution?
Yeah, and something we've been working on before, say, the state we're in now with some of the things we've done historically, but we have really two functioning bodies. The Patriot League announced its anti-racism commission, which will be made up of a combination of student athletes, faculty members, staff, coaches. But prior to that, we were doing a diversity council internal to Bucknell, in partnership with folks on campus. That's also inclusive of staff, faculty, student athletes, and really a partnership. So when you think about those two entities that will exist, and certainly there'll be synergy between the two, it'll be incumbent upon those groups and all of us, but those groups in particular, since they're taking the lead on it, to think about that very question. And it really is diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also anti-racism. And so we're viewing those as, you know, two different things. Yes, the umbrella is DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, but right now our initial focus is on anti-racism. And so we will do a number of things within that space, and we'll also be inclusive of, here at Bucknell, our student athlete enrichment. And so getting feedback from our student athletes, because ultimately you all are living the experience, so we need to hear what that is and how we can help shape it. And so we'll do a number of things, both specific to and coming out of the committees. So one, the commission, one, the council, and we'll just continue to develop it. Yes, we're predominantly white, but that doesn't mean that we can't conquer this if we all truly are in support of this. There's a lot of dynamics. We see what is happening in professional sports, college sports, protesting, you know, all of those different elements. And so those are all good things that bring visibility. But what people will hear me say a lot is I want substantive, meaningful change. So visibility, one thing, but honestly, we're not in the NFL, we're not in the NBA. We don't have that same platform to bring that type of visibility. Doesn't mean we won't get some visibility, but we're not in the NBA or NFL or professional sports. That's a little different. And when you protest or you do various other things that bring attention, that's great. But when you go home at night, does that really create the type of change that we want? And so does that really eradicate racism? Does it really help with diversity, equity, inclusion? And so I'm of the mind of it does because it brings attention, but if you're not doing anything else beyond that, then to me, you're missing the boat. And so that's what we're trying to do here, really born out of those two groups and a collaboration. Again, as I touched on earlier, it's going to take a collaborative effort to get there. But meaningful, substantive change is what I'm looking for. I think people are hungry for it, particularly our student athlete population. I'm also not naive. I understand that not everybody's in the same place with it either, right? And so racism is real, it exists. We can't ignore it anymore, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with what we do, how we approach it. And that's okay. Our job is to get better, continue to educate, and do our part in providing an inclusive, safe environment for all of our students.
So as you start your third year at Bucknell, what do you think is the future of Bucknell athletics, and what do you want Bucknell athletics to look like?
Well, it's a good question. I think in this year, this third year, given the pandemic we're in, it's going to be just trying to figure things out, right? It's going to be very unique. We don't have all the answers. No one does. Everybody can either get on TV or speculate, but nobody truly has the answer because the virus itself will control and dictate ultimately our outcomes, right? And so in this third year, to the extent we can, athletics specifically, trying to mitigate risk to the extent we can, live in a new normal where we don't have fall sports, right? We saw what happened in the spring and the cancellation, but what does that mean for us in the fall? So in this third year, really my mind is, and our staff's mind is, and our coach's mind is, and I'm sure all of our student athletes is, okay, what does this look like for us? What does it mean for us? And yep, we have some definition there in line with the resocialization plan that has been put out by the Ncaa, that has been developed by some of the best medical professionals in the country. So that'll be this year. Big picture, I've said a lot. I want us to be the preeminent program in the Patriot League. And so competitive, I want to win. I want to win in the classroom, community, obviously in competition, right? And so we're in athletics, we're Division I athletics. And so winning on the fields of play is important to me as well. So big picture, how do we strategically plan and invest in those three really buckets, classroom, community, and competition, to be the preeminent program in this league? And so that's what we're trying to do. And in addition to that, as I touched on a little earlier, that continued holistic development of our student athletes. How do we get better as leaders? How do we get better as in engagement? All those different things, student athlete welfare, student athlete experience. We're all learning as administrators, coaches, for sure. But also we want to provide just a great experience overall. So when you walk out of here, you're going to hopefully have a great athletic experience, a great on-campus experience, but that athletic experience being inclusive of that holistic development. And so, that's where we want to be, big picture, where we're, that preeminent program in this league, in those three areas in particular. But again, in this third year, there's just a level of uncertainty that none of us really have the answer for. But big picture, we'll come through this stronger, and we'll be right where we want to be. I'm confident in that. We have a talented group of coaches, talented group of student athletes, and a talented department. And so I'm confident, and they may seem lofty goals, but as you know, that's what we do.
Very true, very true. So we're talking about the COVID pandemic and these unprecedented times and unsurety. And I just want to know, what would you say to a Bucknell student athlete that is apprehensive about coming back and playing their respective sports due to health and safety concerns?
Yep, good question. I would say you have to make the right decision for yourself, right? And so if any of our student athletes do not feel comfortable in this environment coming back, that will go unquestioned. I've already communicated out to our coaches, staff, and our student athletes that roster spots are protected for this year. If you're on any sort of athletic aid, that will also be protected. So we're not going to be in a world where a student athlete opts out, they're on, let's say, aid, and we're going to take that. That's not what we're here for. That's not what we're about. We get it. And so I think most of our student athletes, at least the feedback that I've gotten, they want to be here, want to try to figure it out. But if you don't fall in that category as a student athlete, that's okay. This is just uncertain times for everyone. I don't know too many people that feel comfortable, right? And so we're bringing staff back, we're bringing faculty back. And so like everything in life, there's a level of risk, right? We can never really say it's entirely safe or 100% safe. What we're trying to do is mitigate risk with the best information that we have, right? And that's the nature of existence on life and in life, and that's the nature of existence when we're talking about returning back to campus generally, but more specifically our student athletes. And so I'll finish it by saying how I started it, which is it's important that all of our student athletes make the decision that's right for them, right for their families, and hopefully we get through this pandemic sooner than later, and we will welcome you all back with open arms should you decide to stay away during this time.
Thank you. Those are all my questions. So if Leah, you want to take the role?
I don't think we have any other questions. So thank you so much for coming in and doing this interview with us. And we can't wait to come back and see you face to face with a mask on, of course.
Of course. Well, I have mine here, so I will show it. Little different than the rest of campus, but that's okay. We're going to keep our logo on here. We're going to remain Bison strong, but look forward to seeing you both on campus and the rest of our student athletes. And I appreciate both of your leadership as the president and vice president of our SAAC, and look forward to seeing how that evolves over this new year.